as they will target the Olaf against Rainover on the side of Echo Fox, banning that away first. Liquid responds by banning away Zac. You pretty much have to do it on red team. That champion so powerful right now. Kassadin, the next ban from Echo Fox.
Yeah, Rainover just hasn't actually shown much sustained success on many junglers. This split is actually a little bit worse. The only 2 champions of the 7 that he's even won a game on have been Olaf and Elise in this split. So I wouldn't even be too surprised with the Olaf ban if a first pick Elise does come through, especially with things like Caitlyn already being banned out.
Yep, Caitlyn banned away by Echo Fox, but at the same time, Elise is Acadian's most played jungler this split as well. So expect that to be a contested pick between these 2 sides. As we go further into this draft, LeBlanc, the second ban from Team Liquid. They got one more to pull out here before we get into that first round of picks, and Lucian is the choice.
Yeah, Lucian has actually been something that Froggen has played 3 times and has a 100% win rate on. Often willing to pick it even blind if you're Echo Fox, not thinking that many things Slushie would be able to play would stop him on it. One of his most dominant Lucian games was when he was up against Slushie back in week 1, so I can understand that ban, even though it leaves Galio open.
Galio left open, Kennen left open as well. Kennen, one of the champions that Looper likes to play a lot, tied for his most played champion so far this split. Kennen, Rumble, Renekton. Looper likes to be on those things that can fight, not just a pure tank.
Yeah, and we see the Xayah coming through from Piglet as well. That's a champion that is very highly picked between these 2 AD carries. But if we think of the other matchups we've seen so far this week, it looks like the scrims kind of took a turn for different picks, like Jhin, Tristana, Caitlyn, and very little Xayah. So Piglet can still get some teamfight utility out of that, but it's definitely not the same priority that other teams have been picking it at.
And Liquid also locking in that Rek'Sai. The buffs, the changes, the champion's been coming back with more and more popularity, both in competitive play and solo queue, and we know that Rainover has been more than a capable Rek'Sai in the past.
He absolutely has. It's such a good champion for him, in my opinion. He's only played it once this split because the buffs have been ever so recent. I think this does actually fit very well for them, especially if he's even picking between the Rek'Sai and the Elise. I think Rek'Sai is better for him, so I like that choice.
And over on the side of Echo Fox, though, they're going to lock in Gragas, and they're going to pick up Corki.
Yeah, and the Corki is something that I think fits Froggen. If you're going to ban away his Lucian, he can do very similar things in the game as the Corki. He will obviously be doing more magic damage rather than physical damage, but they're already going to just have a nice, healthy mix of damage types, and it's going to make it difficult for Team Liquid to itemize against them while still giving Echo Fox strong laning phases.
Liquid's final pick in that first part of the draft is going to be Orianna this time around. Pretty much the evergreen mid laner for quite a while now. She seems to be able to be comfortably picked into almost anything, and they're fine picking that up before the second round of bans come out. Blitzcrank and Renekton will be the first 2 of those bans.
Yeah, totally agree there. As I trip on my mic cord a little bit in the background, the Orianna, I think, is very close to being in the OP tier for mid lane. Because so many of these mid laners have put so much time into it, and everyone is very good at playing around that pick. So early picking it in the first rotation, especially when the other mid is already shown, not that odd.
I mean, it's a conversation we've had before, right? About some champions back when, at the beginning of Spring Split, when it was Camille, LeBlanc, and Rengar that were just hilariously busted and they had to be banned every game. There were some players that were like, no, I'm not going to learn Camille or I'm not going to learn Rengar just because there's a 1% chance I'll ever get to play it. It's not worth practicing. But when Orianna is always floating just below that bannable tier, everybody can learn to play it. They can perfect those mechanics, and they can be very, very dangerous on that champ. Jhin and Shen going to be the next couple of bans as we finish up that second banning phase, move on towards the last few picks, and Jarvan is being contemplated by Team Liquid. Very, very strong on the top lane right now.
Yeah, they already know they're going up against a Kennen, they think, unless Keith decides to play that in the bottom lane, which is definitely a possibility if the Looper wants to then pick Fiora against Jarvan, since that's actually a good switcheroo you can do. But if they are going up against the Kennen, I could see why they'd want to lock it in right now, maybe keeping a counter pick support for a little bit later.
Still thinking about it. Looks like the Kennen is considered the top lane pick right now. Keith hovering over the Jinx, but instead switching over to Braum, locking that one in for Gate.
Yeah, there also hasn't been a Fiora game by Looper this split, which is fairly surprising considering Looper has tried to almost solo carry a lot of these games. You expect a marksman pick here, like an Ashe for Keith, just to give them some pick potential, or the Tristana, since they're going to be split pushing and pushing down turrets so much. Overall, the team composition rounds up without too much tomfoolery down the stretch.
And honestly, Tristana has just soared back into popularity.
Yeah.
Very, very recently. This champion was not being played at all for the longest time. Then we saw a couple of picks, and now it's just getting picked all over the place as Caitlyn bans are starting to become more prominent. People are sick of playing against Caitlyn. She's so strong. But Team Liquid will respond by picking up the Janna, another pick that you don't see too often.
You really do not see it that often. Janna used to be a very good pick against AP Kennen because you just knock him out of the fight. I feel against AD Kennen, not as effective, but I do still think it's a fairly good pick. And I want to spend a little bit of time to talk about the Trist and the Janna and how I feel like they kind of work in the overall meta. I always like to play this game to predict what's going to happen in the league meta. If this is true, what else is true? Okay. So if Caitlyn with Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon is busted in the late game, what else would be busted with that build? Trist is actually one of the things that fits the best because she has the escape, she can have the long range, and she can also have a fairly strong laning phase. So as soon as I saw that build on Caitlyn, I wanted to see people doing it on Trist, and it's coming in there right now. And then shielding supports used to also be a little bit busted. Karma and Lulu have been nerfed down. Janna can slot right in, and I've been waiting for this pick to come into the meta for actually several months, especially with the heavier nerfs.
It'll be very fun to see how they stack up when you put it like that. Tristana essentially does become just a second version of Caitlyn in the late game. Her range ends up being actually slightly further than Caitlyn's would be, but of course you don't have the ability to line off the river or an entire lane with the traps, making her not as useful in those situations for sieges and anti-sieges.
Yeah, exactly. Faster turret killing, more dangerous turret killing, and potentially some higher teamfight versatility since you get to rocket jump around and reset in the late game.
Going to be fun to see as both these teams want to be working their way up from the bottom coming into week 5 of NA LCS play. Echo Fox currently sitting on a 3-5 record. Team Liquid slightly below them at 2-6. Got to start winning now if you want to have a chance at grabbing one of those playoff spots. This is going to mark, after this match for these two teams, they're halfway done with the split. We're not super early on anymore where we can just say, oh, it doesn't matter, they can still get it together, things can still, anything will happen. You really need to start finding these wins.
I totally agree, and it's even more important for these guys because Rift Rivals mixed around the schedule a little bit, so you don't actually have clean single round robin best of threes into the second set. This is the second matchup these guys are playing against each other already essentially in their first 9 games, but it makes it even more important to pick up wins against the teams you're directly competing with. Not only do you jump ahead yourself, you push them below you, and that's what these teams care about as they strive for the playoffs.
And one thing I actually want to mention about that, if you look at the wins that have been picked up by these teams in the past, Echo Fox's wins have come out against other teams at the bottoms of the standings. Their 3 wins have been against Envy, they've been against Liquid, and they've been against FlyQuest. Liquid, though, they have a win against Phoenix 1, who's also at the bottom of the standings, but they managed to beat Dig when Dig was on fire.
Yeah, and even though the rosters were a fair bit different back then, Team Liquid beat TSM towards the end of the last split. So Team Liquid, I feel like, is a little bit more of their own worst enemy when they're playing these games rather than the opponents, so to speak. They make a lot of mistakes themselves in their losses.
Well, we'll have to see how this level 1 plays out here as Lorlo tries to give a nice leash over to Rainover here on these small chickens. Doesn't look like any of those are going to be stolen away despite Echo Fox hanging around the area, so Rainover is going to get that nice level 2 start that he wants as the very fast, hard leash is given over to Acadian by his bottom lane.
Yeah, I like to refer to that as the super leash. You can notice
there we go.
that Acadian did the small raptors himself, left the big raptor, while his bottom lane pulled the red buff. So it supercharges his gank. Normally when that happens, we've seen Mike Young do it, where he then full clears his blue side and hits level 4 super fast. I haven't seen this route where you just go kill your Krugs, because that doesn't set you up for any advantage other than you hit your level a little bit faster, especially now that he's kind of doubling back towards the other side. He is healthier than he would be otherwise, but can't quite see what his mind game is yet. He didn't invade or go for an early gank.
Yeah, he could have tried to go for the level 3 gank bottom side, but wisely Team Liquid puts a ward in that tri-brush. As Rainover looking to make that flash into the knockup play, happen topside. Looper taken low, not quite taken down yet. Is that red buff gonna tick? No.
Prey Seeker!
The potion, but the Prey Seeker blocked by the minion.
And that was really tough there. I like the gank. The CC chain from the knockup into the EQ was effective. However, they hit Lorlo during, Looper during Lightning Rush, where he does have the bonus resistances, 10 armor and magic resist, and that makes the difference when you go down to about 10 health.
Yeah.
So Looper narrowly avoiding that, teleports back to lane. Unless there's a repeat gank, that actually doesn't hurt him that much. He lost very few minis.
And I always enjoy seeing situations like that in League of Legends where you take something like 10 armor and magic resistance that you would normally just discard and say how unimportant it was. It doesn't really make that much of a difference, but sometimes there are those fringe cases where it's the difference between life and death, and First Blood not. Acadian trying to just farm up through his jungle now. Like you said, that early start that he got didn't really pay any dividends in terms of getting involved in the lanes or in the enemy jungle, but at least he's got a nice safe farm route that he can get himself leveled up and become that much more powerful, that much more quickly.
Yeah.
Gragas hits that 6. You know how strong he is.
Exactly. Maybe he was a little worried about getting counter jungled by the Rek'Sai. I'm actually a little bit disappointed because I feel like when you're on bottom side and you have the chance for a super leash, you should go for something. You can quick clear and then invade blue buff. Like one thing I see a lot is you will do the Raptors red and then invade blue because you do it so fast before the guy can get there. Even so, Acadian looks like he's trying to set up. These generally spawn right after 420 when you start at Raptors, but he's spotted out by Ward and actually getting collapsed on by Team Liquid.
Froggen going to be taken below half HP. Rainover coming in now as well. He and Lorlo seeing if they can zone away their opponent in Acadian. They will successfully do so. Froggen loses out on the trade, but does not expend any summoner spells.
Yeah, nothing too much happening, I'd say, off of that one. Rainover's still able to secure his Raptors. Lucy did bring Ghost, though, so he's got to be a little bit careful against Acadian, especially since they know Rek'Sai will be at Raptors.
Yep, Rek'Sai just going to be continuing to farm up, get as strong as she can. You can see the Ruby Crystal in Rainover's inventory, hinting at likely a Cinder Hulk start on this Rek'Sai.
Yeah, can also be built towards Titanic Hydra really early on, but absolutely, we've seen Rainover go tanky Rek'Sai or damaging Rek'Sai fairly often. Most of the LCS Rek'Sais we've seen have been fairly tanky early in this team composition with all the shielding. I feel like you could definitely get away with a more offensive build. I'm thinking that's going to be a Titanic Hydra, but it's hard to tell.
We'll have to see. Have to see exactly how he chooses to play this one out. Ruby Crystal does have a lot of those options. CS staying pretty close in every lane except for mid, where Froggen is doing Froggen things, off to a pretty substantial lead over his opponent. 15 CS this early on.
Yeah, and that's not something Slucci wants to experience. He does not want to go 40 CS down against Froggen again. It's really hard to beat Orianna by large amounts of CS, since Orianna does typically have a pretty strong laning phase. But all the way back to 2013, Froggen's considered Corki and Orianna counterpick, so does like having that matchup, and they're going for the repeat gank.
Seeing if they can make it happen the second time, but not quite. Without the flash, Rainover can't close that distance. Looper's going to stay safe. Of course, he is zoned back a little bit, but he's got a big, juicy wave heading his way. He can now farm very safely.
Yeah, and as long as Team Liquid's other lanes are not in trouble, that gank has almost no cost for Rainover, since his blue side jungle is just respawning, so it's a fairly efficient gank path. The only worry when you show yourself on the map is that the enemy jungler is either going to counter jungle you or take your lanes. But Acadian's actually doing neither of those things because he's still clearing his own jungle and then actually walks through some vision, I believe, unless he snuck past this. He actually did sneak past this. He has not been spotted.
Wants to try to go for Lorlo if he can. Looper has the cannon ulti available, looking to make this happen. Here it comes, unleashing those abilities. Lorlo forced to flash out, Acadian flashing right after him, seeing if maybe he can secure this kill. A little bit more damage will not show up in time, and Lorlo's out of it.
So a couple very close to kill ganks by both junglers right there. Now this is the counterplay that you could see. Rainover immediately going for a counter jungle, but he has been spotted out by Corki.
Yup, he knows. Well, Froggen knows, I should say, that Rainover is here, but he's not going to be moving to stop him right now. Rainover will get away with stealing this red buff out, and Acadian knows that that's happening. Froggen said, hey, he's stealing your red, go steal his, and that's where Acadian's headed right now.
Good communication between the teams. No need to get into a jungle tussle unless you feel like they're going to have a natural advantage, but he's got to be watching out for this gank.
They can always get into a mid lane tussle, flash into the knockout yet again from Rainover. Now looking to use that ulti, finding the burst. A little bit more damage will not be found, and Froggen gets himself away.
35 health, but the health potion has been ticking for about 8 seconds, so because Froggen drank that health potion as that gank started, that is the reason he's able to stay alive. Very close gank there by Rainover.
Health potion mechanics so important in these close trades as Keith face checks the brush, only to find Piglet waiting there for him, loses about half his health.
Yeah, with Braum showing mid lane, that is a smart move by Piglet and Conquan to lay in wait. Pushing Keith right back into base after shopping and buying that BF sword. He doesn't want to go home, but he might have to.
Meanwhile, Lorlo, again, feeling the sting of the Acadian pressure up here in the top side. Scryer's Bloom going to be spotting Rainover out as well. Looper knows exactly where he is now, knows how cautious he's going to need to be about this one. Doesn't quite find that Thundering Shuriken onto Lorlo, but Rainover's still threatening this. Going to zone him back long enough to allow Lorlo to push this out.
Yeah, I wonder if Lorlo, 7,500 gold, doesn't necessarily need to back, but shoving in the wave, never that bad of a thing when they're out of vision, and he's going to recall anyway.
He can get the page. That nice little move speed bonus passive will help him if he decides to trade against Looper. Go all in with the flag and drag. Speaking of going all in, Froggen is armed with the package on that Corki. Usually this early on into the game, it's hard to use those effectively to find a kill. Players generally play very safe when they hear the sound that alerts them that Corki's got it.
Yep.
So you're not normally getting a lot of opportunity to use that to pick anything up, but it's still nice to have the chance.
Yeah, Froggen is pinging towards the blue buff of Team Liquid because he wants to go, but the vision is so poor for Echo Fox that they got to be extremely careful. They shut out the bottom lane, and they're moving Braum and Trist in there. One of the favorite uses of a package I see is when a mid laner packages in while the enemy mid/jungle is doing blue, and they try and force a fight there. Looks like that's what Echo Fox is optimistically hoping can happen.
Well, unluckily for Froggen, the package runs out before he's able to do anything with it. The enemy blue buff is still there. And you know, even when you make those plays, if you don't secure the blue, a lot of the times you will force the enemy jungler to smite it away, which at least keeps it off the mid laner if nothing else. You'd much rather see a Rek'Sai with a blue buff than an Orianna, especially when you're trying to win that mid lane matchup really hard. Still a 15 CS lead for Froggen over Slushie, so Slushie has staunched that bleeding a little bit for now. You've still got to pay a lot of respect towards Froggen and how much resources the team allocates towards him, because we know Echo Fox, like we mentioned in the draft, loves to enable him every chance they get.
They really do, and it's the jungle invade returning, but Froggen actually just going back to his wave while the rest of his team goes for its invade, so they realistically can't get this.
Ooh, Shockwave comes out, Acadian going to be brought down, caught out a little bit here, and there's your Rek'Sai bite for the first blood. That's that Emax Irene was talking about earlier, does so much true damage burst.
Yeah, it's the right Rek'Sai build in my opinion, but that was the wrong team play by Echo Fox. Really just doesn't seem like they're on the same page. They set up the blue buff invade, but then their mid laner in Froggen never goes to assist, so they're invading into an odd-numbered fight. So of course they're going to lose that. Poor play there by Echo Fox, giving up first blood over to Rainover.
And one thing I want to go ahead and jump back to real quick, the Cinder Hulk point earlier about the Rek'Sai, he is going for that tanky start. Acadian doing the same, but it's not enough to keep him alive here.
Yeah, and I feel like only about 10% of Gragas's have been going Cinder Hulk, so they're expecting to have all of the damage from their 3 marks, which I can understand. This is one of the situations in which you would go Cinder Hulk Gragas. Watch this one more time, though. I mean, Acadian just tries to go for a smite fight and then tests his luck that he'll be able to body slam away to safety, because there's a Shockwave and a Janna Tornado that have the potential to interrupt him, and they do.
And Gate tried with the exhaust. He tried to keep Rainover off, but the problem with the Rek'Sai bite, you know when it's a full Fury, that's going to be true damage.
Yep, can't exhaust the true damage.
Exhaust won't have much of an impact on that one, as Lorlo just keeps farming up here topside against Looper, who has built a nice CS lead for himself. 20 up over the Jarvan, but that's to often be expected with AD Cannon, such a lane bully on this champ. Rainover now, seeing if he can maybe catch him out as Looper makes his way into Team Liquid jungle territory, but Lightning Rush will get him away to safety. No real issues just yet.
Yeah, I feel like AD Cannon is the most banned yet least effective champion we kind of have in our game. It's got a very low win rate in NA at least, but has banned a whole bunch. The people who can play it really like it, and people don't want to play against it, but seldom do we actually see it being that effective, since when you do see it, it's almost always first picked, and I think people have generally good counter picks against it. I think the Jarvan is a good pick against it because it is hard for the Kennen to totally smash the lane, or at least stay safe and deathless in the lane. So far, so good for Looper, because when he hits a couple of those big item power spikes, I think he does begin to win.
Now Lorlo picking up that Ninja Tabby, though, going to help him a lot in terms of resisting the auto attack damage, giving the mobility that he needs to stay on top of Looper or stay away from Looper, depending on what the situation calls for. Acadian moving towards his own red. He's got his support hanging around just in case, because they know that Team Liquid is coming for this. Slushie, Conquan, Rainover, all looking to make their move. Red buff gets a little impatient, resets himself back towards his home. Rainover makes a tunnel and gets himself out the backside, and Liquid decides this is no longer worth the investment.
Yeah, and they back away, but in this situation, Froggen staying in mid lane actually pays off, because he gets about a wave and a half that Slushie gives up, because Slushie was with his team on the invade. but Team Liquid didn't have the confidence to stay in for a 4v3 right there. I think they could have, actually, if they just would have brute forced their way in, but maybe they just respect the teleport of the Kennen a little bit too much. They back away and end up giving up a bunch of CS in the mid lane.
I mean, they saw what happened when Echo Fox made a not fully planned out invade. They didn't want to make the same mistake themselves, and honestly, I think that's a really smart decision to make, because for both these teams, one reason they find themselves low in the standings is the mistakes they make, putting themselves in situations. Like you mentioned earlier, Liquid is oftentimes their own worst enemy.
Yep, I think they are, and it's interesting watching these two teams play against each other, and it's going to be fairly passive as well, because one of the things that hurts these teams is when they fall behind, they don't have good comeback mechanisms, or when they get a lead, they don't necessarily have good vision control to close out a game. So there's a very real potential we see a very long series between these two teams, because they need to work on their conditions of victory. They need to figure out, when they have an advantage, exactly what can they do to extend it and ultimately win the game.
For now, that advantage is going to be looked to be built for Echo Fox through Froggen, who's got his second package armed and ready. Fan vote there at the bottom part of the screen. Team Liquid fans showing up in force today. 64% of the vote believes that Liquid's walking away from this one with the win, which will then bring them up to a tied record with Echo Fox.
Yeah, they are coming into this one with 2 wins. Echo Fox has 3. Package, Froggen wants to use it. Here they go.
There they go now. Looper going to be taking some damage here at the start, but Lorlo and Rainover successfully put themselves underneath the turret safely enough to prevent Echo Fox from going any further, and the play is botched.
Yeah, that wasn't very close to doing anything. Didn't cut anyone off with the package, and even though it was a 2v3, needed to get back to mid lane ASAP, as Slushie actually is getting a big chunk out of that turret.
Doing a good job just zoning Froggen away here. Even though Froggen has the blue, he's just trying to fire the rockets off, clear the wave out if he can, but Slushie really, really abusing that position.
Yeah, that corridor is such a good one for Orion as a whole. Just press Shockwave if Froggen ever tries to step over it.
Froggen finally makes his way back into mid lane, but Slushie retreats knowing that there's probably something that's going to be happening soon. Doesn't want Acadian to make his way into that lane, find the opportunity to get a flash body slam into a cask. Acadian is showing up, though, comes over the wall. Exactly what we were talking about. Flash into the body slam. Cask not going to be coming out yet. Does find him, though, and the damage comes out enough to make that kill happen. But Rainover's got the return kill, now having to work his way out of this, making sure he doesn't become manatee food 1-for-1.
Yeah, has the incredibly short tunnel cooldown. Only takes 2 seconds before he can use the tunnel again, since he has maxed his E first. Jungler for jungler kill right there doesn't actually have too much of a net effect, other than Froggen will get a bit of an experience advantage in the lane, because he's the one who gets to stick around, and Rek'Sai is really no match for Corki in a lane.
Yeah, oftentimes you don't want to trade the jungler away for the mid laner like that if you are on the side of Team Liquid, especially when we were highlighting, you know, Slushie fell behind so hard the first time these two teams went against each other. They want to try to prevent that kind of a bleed out in this second game, the second match, I should say. It's not quite happening just yet. Looper trying to make those moves onto Lorlo, popping the bilge water cutlass, but Lorlo gets himself far enough away that Looper cannot commit underneath the turret. Meanwhile, mid lane, first turret down, thanks to Froggen.
Yeah, the strategy of Echo Fox, just win the lane super hard and then continue the siege, is mostly working right now. They're not getting overtaken by the Rek'Sai so far in the early game. Fox going in hard in the bot lane.
2v2 breaking out. Piglet going to be soaking some damage with the heal from Conquan. We'll top him right back off. Acadian goes over the wall. He and Rainover both hanging around, looking to get involved in this if they can. Control ward placed down by Liquid in that tri-brush will allow Rainover to clear out the normal ward placed down by Fox. Acadian here just in case they try to make a dive. Very dangerous to dive into a Gragas. Piglet takes a couple of auto attacks, still trying to keep this wave pushed up.
Especially with heal and Janna ultimate down. Slushie, though, knowing Gragas is most likely bottom side, pushes up to try and get the turret down on his hand.
And I like how brave Slushie's playing this as well. Always staying forward.
We're going to watch the 2v2 that erupted in the mid lane here. Slushie trying to zone with the Orianna ball again, and as he moves it for Harass, Acadian comes in, which really catches Slushie in a bad spot, because he then needs to shield himself before repositioning, meaning his shockwave ends up coming really late, and he doesn't really get the choice of targets. So that's why they ended up killing Acadian. Would much rather have focused Froggen, but they do trade one kill back.
Rainover going for that tanky Rek'Sai build that you mentioned earlier. Cinderhulks into more Kindle Gems for both players, so piling on that health, getting some CDR, very effective on both these champs. And now It's going to be Lorlo who face checks into the brush. Looper and Acadian trying to make those moves. Blade of the Rune King coming out to do the damage, do the work onto Lorlo's health bar, and Looper's grabbing that kill.
Ooh, that is not what you want to have happen if you're Team Liquid. The Cloud Drake, they don't necessarily care that much about, and they can't even get it because Froggen is moving over, and the teleport advantage is in the side of Looper. I wonder if they decide to fight it. No, they're going to decide to take the Rift Herald instead.
And remember back to Spring Split when we saw a lot of Corki mid back in those days? The rocket spam is so effective when your opponents are trying to take an objective, just delaying it. Even if you can't fully stop it, it makes them respect you enough that it takes so much extra time.
Yeah, I actually really like where Echo Fox is positioned in this game right now. I think they also have the opportunity to build double Knight's Vow and still have two really good people to put it on. I think that's what Acadian and Gate should kind of both build with their next items. Pending Slushy getting really huge, there's just a bunch of physical damage on the side of Team Liquid, and I think that actually makes their team fight really good too. So I think you give a nice fight to Froggen and Keith and just kind of 4v4 with the split pushing cannon, and they'd be in great shape.
Liquid at least grabs themselves their first turret of the game. That extra global gold going to help all the boys try to catch up to their counterparts. Still down about 1,500 gold, but we're getting into that point of the game where things traditionally become more difficult for Echo Fox, Chad. We're out of the early game, we're into the mid game. This is where the team seems to become a little lost in terms of translating the leads they might have into bigger leads and into wins.
Yeah, and at least they should have a clear understanding of where this team composition should trend. They got effectively three marksmen and two frontline. So they're just going to split push and kill turrets as best as their ability, and you do that until the Nexus falls. That's actually how mostly this strategy works. Knight's Vow completed by Acadian. I love it. I think you should go throw that on Froggen or whoever he decides to chase around as much as possible. You can switch it on about a 45-second cooldown if you want to, so pretty much whatever lane he walks into, if he's going to go up and siege a turret, that dude will get Knight's Vow and be much harder to kill. I think that item is ridiculously good right now.
It's so very effective. It's not even a high price point either.
Yeah.
And the base stats on it, it's very similar after the itemization changes and the stat changes to what you saw in like Dead Man's Plate and Randuin's. It's really not that much worse than one of those types of items. You get less armor, but the health pool's higher.
Yeah, Knight's Vow is 400 health, 40 armor, and 10% cooldown reduction. But then you also get armor and movement speed towards your bonded target. Then you heal for the damage they deal, and you give them damage reduction effectively when you have the Knight's Vow on it. But those are all the stats you're going to almost ever want as a tank jumper, which is why I think people are willing to build it as a second item. I think it's actually the most effective when your carries are doing the most damage and when the game is scaled, because healing for damage dealt and flat damage reduction scale actually tremendously well with game time. The item is just really good, especially when you have multiple carries. So finding team compositions which can abuse those things, I think is very effective.
Echo Fox and their team moving towards Baron now, 21 minutes into the game, making a brave call to go for this, but they will be forced off by Liquid, who move in, place down a couple of wards, and their presence alone will scare Fox off. Baron still does a lot of damage at this point in the game. It's very early to try to take it, so Echo Fox wisely respecting that, but at the same time, they lose their tier 1 mid.
Yeah, that's a little frustrating to see because they seem to be so strong as a team right there, and this has been a problem from Echo Fox pretty much every week, is giving up mid lane priority for even just a look at Baron. They didn't need to stop wave clearing in the mid lane. Froggen is almost unpushable at this point on Corki with rocket spam and blue buff, not to mention Trist has great wave clear. But just to get a control ward on Baron, Team Liquid takes control of mid lane, gets a turret, and keeps the game close.
I want to go ahead and point out, by the way, both junglers' Knight's Vows are on their respective AD carries. Keith is the target from Acadian as opposed to Froggen. So in these team fights, Acadian and Gate are going to want to especially make sure that Keith is allowed to deal as much damage as possible on this Trist. He does have Static Shiv completed. Of course, Froggen has both Trinity and Static done, meaning that that first auto attack from the Corki is going to do a lot of hurt.
Yeah, I think right now, Acadian's Knight's Vow choice is just wrong, because it doesn't matter if they're doing AD or magic damage. Put it on the person who's going to be doing the most damage. And a level 14 Corki with Trinity Force and Static Shiv and a pickaxe is going to be doing a lot more damage than a level 11 Trist who hasn't completed Infinity Edge and still has that Static Shiv. Especially since he's closer to Froggen most of the time. You need to be in range in order to have any effectiveness from the item.
Seems like a fair critique, but maybe Acadian's just really concerned about Keith ending up getting bursted down. Maybe he thinks that's going to be the target from Rainover and Slushy and wants the damage reduction. Not quite sure exactly, but it's always fun to play devil's advocate every now and then as the Rift Herald slams his big old head right into that turret, takes it down. That's number 3 for Echo Fox, the 3rd and final in the outer ring.
And now they're posturing around this Baron. It's difficult for them to force a fight, but Acadian does have Flash, so he can potentially find an initiation for this team.
Always got to be careful trying to initiate onto a Xayah, though. The ability for her to
buying time for Looper, though.
Works so well. But Looper just does so much damage onto Lorlo now. I mean, Lorlo has no tank ability. His only tank item is a Ninja Tap.
Yeah, so they don't need to initiate if Looper's making headway like this. That's 2 turrets down on the side. It also slingshots his gold ahead a little bit. That's now a 2,000 gold advantage he has over Lorlo because he got solo turret gold for 2 turrets.
Very, very strong on this cannon. 2,000 gold lead, nothing to scoff at. 2-2. The game actually very low on kills overall. We're only averaging 1 kill every 5 minutes or so, which, considering what we've seen before from these teams, especially Echo Fox being explosive in the early game and trying to win through that, you would expect to see it be a little bit more bloody, but dialed back a bit this time.
Yeah, and I think for Echo Fox, that's what they want with this team composition. They want to just shove all the lanes, make sure they're staying safe in as many ways as they can, and just accumulate turrets and a mild gold lead that way, and just get to the point where no one can match Looper's cannon in the side lane while still having large amounts of damage in the mid lane if Team Liquid get overly aggressive wishing to engage. They have good, almost great disengage with Gragas, Corki, Tristan, Braum with their 4-man squad, as long as Looper can play the split push game properly. So for the most part, I think this is going according to plan for Echo Fox.
Team Liquid still doing everything they can to try to turtle it out, allow this game to go on a little bit further, see if maybe they can punish Fox again. If they make a mistake, overextending themselves too far, being a little too uncoordinated like they were earlier in the jungle, Fox really needs to make sure they're on the same page with everyone, especially Looper and Froggen, in terms of that split push timing and having Froggen in the right spot to do the damage in these fights. Always look at Echo Fox damage graphs after the game. Who's topping them? It's Froggen. Who's got all the gold? It's Froggen. Who's doing the most of everything? It's Froggen.
Who gets Knight's Vow? Keith. Why not? Put it on the guy that does all the things. Anyway, they're building up a second one. Gate will be the partner of Froggen later.
They're just, you save the best for last, right?
Hopefully. We'll see. I mean, they're not fighting right now, so it actually doesn't matter who he has Knight's Vow on.
Right, it doesn't do anything. If you're not taking damage from enemy champions, it's not really going to help for a whole lot of much. But Looper and Acadian are enough to take down that Earth Drake, and getting that under their belts will make Baron that much more scary of a proposition for Liquid to have to stop. Even if it's only 1, that extra 10% can still make a difference sometimes. Lorlo going to be caught out here by Looper. Does get the flag and drag off in the middle of the stun. Escapes with his life, or at least half of it.
Yeah, and you want to escape that duel as the Jarvan, or you need a friend to come and actually win the 2v2 with you. Otherwise, it's just miserable as a split pusher dude. So it is actually on Team Liquid to try and find these initiations, because Echo Fox will be fine keeping this game 2 kills to 2 forever.
Yeah.
Since Looper is always winning that side.
Why not, right? But over the wall goes Rainover. We're going to get some damage there onto Keith, who jumps himself away to safety. Not really too worried about it. I mean, after the initial Rek'Sai knockup, what's going to stop you? Janna Tornado can't come through quick enough to end that one, and Keith gets himself out. No real problem there just yet. Infinity Edge now completed on that Tristana too, means he's starting to get closer and closer to that 3-item spike. This goes back to exactly what you talked about. What's good on Caitlyn? It's hitting that 3-item spike, right? You get to the mid game, you go from okay, sort of a problem to a big threat. Trist, very similar. Once that 3rd item comes online, that's when you start worrying about it.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm also a little confused because he's got a longsword sitting in his inventory that doesn't build into rapid fire cannon as much as I would like it to sometimes. So interesting to see what Keith will go with for his next item.
Looper
trying to get him in a 2v1, still don't get him.
Nope, that lightning rush has got him out of trouble more than a few times so far this game. Always using it at the right moment to hasten himself up, get out of range of any ability coming after him, and he can dodge away from the flag and drag. Acadian, good smite there.
Yeah, and they're just slowly pulling ahead in this game. I mean, they're so comfortable with the scaling of their marksman right now. They should be a little concerned, though, just if Slushie lands a good shockwave onto Corki and Trist, it's over. They have 2 guys going full support. I mean, look at Acadian. That's basically a support build. Tank supports build those 2 items. So they're just kind of setting up a jungler tank support and a support tank support to deal with two carries, trying to make 2 bot lanes really have function in these team fights.
And it's like what you just got done saying, almost as if Acadian could hear you and say, you know what? Ori shockwaves could be a problem. I don't want to deal with that. Let's get Locket before anything else. and stop that from being able to remove half of somebody's health bar. If you can shield that and have that timing right when it needs to be, you can seriously hurt the team fight potential of Team Liquid. Because if Slushie doesn't hit one of those big shockwaves, how does Team Liquid win a fight?
Yeah, they don't. They get run down by Froggen and Keith. Froggen did pick up a Last Whisper with that. I can understand that. Rainover is stacking a lot of early armor. Looks like he's going to Stoneplate with his third item. So he's probably hopefully sitting on the Last Whisper, then building up towards a rapid fire cannon ASAP.
Do have to be able to deal with those front lines. It can be very, very difficult to have any sort of a big role in the team fight with Rek'Sai just sitting on top of you, stacking the armor like that. But Infinity Edge now done on Froggen. Remember, 80% of Corki's auto attack damage is now magic. So Rainover's Rek'Sai is not going to be too resilient against that just yet.
Yeah, Echo Fox is outscaling, and I do want to point out the absurd rate of farm. And here comes the fight, maybe.
Oh, Rainover getting himself caught out. More damage coming in, trying to use the ulti to get himself away, but instead going to be forced into the waiting arms of Echo Fox. Gets himself out with the flash, but that was almost way too close. Keith nearly falling to the shockwave, getting himself back with the rocket jump. An explosive fight, but very unexplosive results.
Yeah, both of them have Knight's Vow on as well. Look how low he got. If it wasn't for that damage reduction, there's a chance that shockwave actually would have killed him. But I do want to just reiterate the absurd rate of farm for this Echo Fox team. 340 CS for Froggen in 30 minutes. That's over 11 CS per minute. And a kill.
Have a spatula Rainover. Froggen takes him down as Lorlo makes his way now into this mix. Trying to go in with the flag and drag onto Acadian, who uses the locket to block it up. The damage coming into Lorlo's health bar. Now he's in retreat.
Man.
There is so much damage being dealt by these rockets. Froggen's able to find one, almost able to get two. Slushie and Piglet in full retreat. Keith coming in, looking to make the plays happen. Piglet with the ulti to get himself out, drop that target ability, but Fox finds the win.
And that was with the teleport being expended by Lorlo, so it is just falling apart for Team Liquid right now. They are not dealing with this Echo Fox split push. We talked about Echo Fox not knowing how to pull the trigger and pull themselves all the way to victory, but I actually really like the way they have been playing this one, because all they have to do is prevent death, wait for Team Liquid to initiate, and then use their well-constructed four-man squad to win these fights.
We criticize this team for falling apart in the mid-game very frequently and not translating early advantages, but the patience displayed this game is what's really impressing me from Echo Fox, and the reward 30.5 minutes into the game is Baron Nashor going their way. They've got almost a 10,000 gold lead, and you mentioned the farm. When you combine those elements, this is scary.
Yeah, I mean, Froggen has 14,000 gold 30 minutes into the game just because of farm. Watching it one more time, they'd already taken Rainover low and burned his flash, so he should not have been taking Prugs. Then they teleport in, but they're actually teleporting in to, I guess it is a 4v3 because Keith was off in the mid lane, but just, if you're not going to get to Froggen, the dude with all the gold in the farm, you're going to have a bad time, and he just destroys them. Gatling gun into missile, into auto attack, I guess, but you can see he's just doing so much damage because they can't get to him. Keith not necessarily able to execute, but does blow the ultimate from Piglet.
The shot was in the air as Piglet pressed the ulti, so if Piglet didn't have that split-second reaction, Keith would have been able to take him down. It was very, very close, but Piglet is one of those very mechanically talented players who was able to recognize that problem and deal with it appropriately. But I want to talk about something that happens a lot where normal, everyday players watch games like this and they're like, why does Froggen's Corki do so much more damage than my Corki? And the reason is he has 360 farm in 31 minutes when a normal player would have 200 farm.
That's exactly it. Normal, your Corki is not getting close to 12 CS per minute and staying deathless. And also, you're not getting double Knight's Vow, double Locket out of your jungler and support to keep you safe.
Now, Gate's going to be jumped on, but that's not really the guy you can start off a fight with. Lorlo knocked up into the air. Glacial Fissure used to just make sure that this doesn't go anywhere as Looper takes down the top lane tier 3, now moving on to inhibitor number 2. Looper in the top lane, Super's in the bot lane, and the rest of the team mid. Things are looking dire for Team Liquid.
Oh, yeah. Team Liquid is very sad right now because they can't even get in. Rainover's going to try.
Rainover tries to go in, instantly loses about half his HP. Lorlo looking to go on to Froggen if at all possible. Not going to be working out today. Airborne he goes, Stoneplate wears off, down to 1,000 HP, the push continues. Echo Fox wants to break this base in half. They'll find the mid lane inhib and the top lane inhib. Everything has gone from bad to worse for Team Liquid as their top lane is about to be taken down. Looper grabs himself that kill, now looking to make it a 2 for if he can do it.
Doesn't even need to. They're
doesn't matter.
They're just going to rush down these turrets. I think they got super minions coming in for multiple waves. There's no initiation left for Team Liquid. Shockwave would have to kill the world, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
Not today, Jet. Not today. Echo Fox, 5 men strong on the enemy Nexus. The final push coming in unless Team Liquid has a miracle, but it's not going to be water into wine today. Echo Fox start this series 1-0.
Keith just won a game going 0-0-0, and I'm not willing to say he played bad. Right, because the rest of Echo Fox just had everything go according to plan. All they had to do was farm up, disengage, and split push. I mean, you got a 2-0-0 looper in the top lane. You got an Acadian who probably did about 12 damage to the team because all he was doing was Knights Vowing and building a locket, but it's exactly what they needed to do. So this is the type of thing that you would be much more impressed with if it worked against a team that was more successful, right? But it absolutely exploited what Team Liquid hasn't been able to do all year, and that's punish teams when they expose themselves. But I didn't see much from Echo Fox there that was open to being counterplayed. They kept very good spacing. They had good wards. It was just a nice win.
Yeah, this whole team worked together. They stayed on the same page. We had that early bit of a problem in the jungle where Froggen was like, hey, I know you guys really want to steal the buff, but there's a wave here, and you know I got records to keep up with, and I got to make sure I have the farm. That went really poorly. But after that, it's like they all got everything together. They're like, okay, we can't do that.
Yeah.
But we can do anything else.
And that play was half of their deaths for the game. They only had 2 deaths. It's one of the cleanest games that I feel like Echo Fox has played. And I've criticized a lot of the Echo Fox item builds in the past, but I thought they built almost perfectly this game for their intended roles. And they go a little atypical to some of the things you'd be used to be seeing, especially out of a Jungle Gragas when everyone goes Runic Echoes, but it's exactly what the team needed.
Yeah, he was the tank. Gate was the tank. You described it. This team comp was made to essentially have 2 bot lanes and a split push Kennen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what
turrets.
they had to do. Right, yeah. Kennen kills the turrets. Everybody else waits patiently. Froggen's in trouble. Oh, I'm Acadian. I'm going to peel for him. Keith's in trouble. Oh, Gate's right there. Kaboom. Glacial Fissure. He's saved. There was no way for Liquid to ever make a play.
Yeah, they had the Jarvan and the Rek'Sai. They didn't snowball around that. They never got off a good ball delivery system with the Orianna. And then even the bottom lane, right, the Janna, you like it for the late game thought of a hyper carry, but if you're never going to be able to engage, the other team that has the 3 auto attackers to your 1 are just going to outscale you.
And then when the fights finally do happen, they end up looking like this. 29.5 minutes into the game, Fox, they find a 2 for 0 in the top side. They get themselves Baron.
Yeah, watching this one more time, I mean, this is after we'd already seen a fair bit of the fight with Shockwave down and Reignover having no flash. Froggen just finishes him off, and at this point, it's desperation for Team Liquid because Lorlo's not winning that 1v1. He's going to lose his inhibitor turret, he feels like anyway, so he tries to engage, but how did they actually get in there? Acadian has 3,000 health, Gate throws up his Unbreakable Shield, and as they're walking through that, Froggen kills everyone because he's a 340 farm Corki at 29 minutes. Keith then nearly getting the kill on a Piglet, but by this point they can just peel back for Baron. They've already taken the inhibitor, and the gold was out of control.
Yeah, gold difference over time. You can see the graph on your screen right now. A little bit of red, a little bit of blue, back and forth, but very close to that central line. And then right about 17, 18 minutes, it just turns into an upward scale for Echo Fox. It never comes back down. 5.1k damage on Acadian's Gragas. A little bit more than 12, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the scoreboard again, and I can't remember the last time we had an LCS game where both AD carries finished the game 0-0-0, and both supports finished 0-0-1. This game was so low interaction from a champion v champion perspective because Team Liquid did not have an answer for what Echo Fox wanted to do. And you saw as soon as they tried to interact, the map just collapsed around them because Echo Fox did keep up the pressure for most of the game.
And as we expected, Froggen with the performance, you saw on that damage chart, nearly 25,000 damage, just head and shoulders above anyone else on the table, including the guys on his own team. And that goes back to what you were talking about, Acadian, Knight's Vow, who are you going to put it on?
Yeah, he did like 5,000 damage. Eventually, I don't know if they switched or rooted around. They had 2 of them, so it didn't matter at the end of the day. Echo Fox has got to build off that. I mean, if you want to pull yourself out of a slump, have clean games like that and close out Team Liquid in 2 games.
Well, we'll see if Liquid can strike back in game number 2 against Echo Fox. Stick around after the highlights, though, for a look at Sneak.